with Barrett Christie Cummings, absolutely amazing individual. She actually has about 30 years of experience in action sports and outdoor industry, career spanning from competitive professional snowboarder to brand advocate to absolutely amazing human being, as well as now stepping into supporting individuals with their finances. And Brett and I have had a chance to get to know each other over the past couple months, and excited to share her story and some advice to help you pursue your dreams. So, Brett, thank you so much for jumping on today. And I'd love to kind of start with a little bit of your background, where you came from, and like where this insane passion uh, was created for you over the years.
Thank you, John. Yeah, background. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I know we have East Coast in common, but that path was, I mean, snowboarding wasn't in my trajectory when I lived there. I got out of high school and started to just get the travel bug, and uh, honestly toured with the Grateful Dead for a little bit, and that was kind of my ticket to go see new places, and that inspired a love of the mountains and going to the Sierras in California. I ended up driving across the country and moving to Lake Tahoe, and that's where I discovered snowboarding. It had been around for a while, but I never came across snowboarding until I was in the mountains there, struggling with my skis and realizing very quickly that I was not a good skier. And these snowboarders were blowing by me, and they looked like they were having so much more fun than me. So I picked up snowboarding and really got hooked. It really it inspired me to move to Colorado a couple years later and devote more time to it, because it was one of those challenges that I just was never it felt like I wasn't getting better, but I was, and I just had to do it all the time because I loved it, and also because that I was addicted to that feeling of improvement. And landed in Crested Butte, Colorado for a couple of years. That mountain really taught me how to navigate the mountain and natural terrain, and then got inspired to do a little competing and see where I stood in the level of women's snowboarding at the time. So I moved to Vail, Summit County in Colorado, and really stayed there for the next 10 years and competed full time. And as opportunities presented themselves, I just kept following the next big thing. So, snowboard competition for a solid 10 years professionally. I mean, I still compete for fun now and then, but I met my husband, moved to Washington after my competitive years, and that's where I'm at now with two kids that are almost fully grown, and different career paths along the way, but always been rooted in the lessons learned and the passion for snowboarding, being in the mountains, and the outdoors.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that stands out for me about you is, when you set your mind to something, like there's so much passion in what you do, from supporting people in their path, for what you're doing now in finance, the idea of pursuing your dreams of snowboarding and becoming a competitive snowboarder. And a lot of times I think people have this fear of like the unknown, or doing that. So when you are kind of getting out there and doing things that maybe people might be afraid, or like there's some fear that comes up when you do it, what was some of the things that you did for yourself to stay committed to, tell yourself, hey, I'm going to keep on going, not give up, and relentlessly pursue this dream?
I think it's pure stubbornness. I think initially starting to snowboard and realizing that there was a professional path there, I, would go back to my parents in Pennsylvania and tell them I'm going to be a professional snowboarder, and they had no idea what a snowboard was. But they supported me. I mean, they saw the passion, but I'd always kind of felt like I had something to prove, I guess, both to the people that doubted me and that doubted it was even a professional path. And the following the classic trajectory of going to college after school, knowing what you want to be when you grow up, and pursuing that roadmap. I never knew what it was that I wanted to do in a educational point of view, and so I really attached myself to something that hit me in the heart. And I guess I've been emotionally driven towards all of my goals in life. But yeah, to dumb it down, I think I felt like I had something to prove and wanted to prove that I could do what I said I was going to do. And I mean, obviously, the change from athletics to then working behind the scenes for brands and now working in my own business for financial services, each of those steps required kind of a start over and a um, proving that I could do what I said I was going to do. I'm still proving. I mean, there's different levels in any career that when we aspire to get to them, we have to believe it ourselves before we can prove to someone else that we can do it.
Yeah, I think belief in ourselves is super important. I can relate to that with my kids when I was early on in my career in the banking industry before transitioning into coaching, consulting, and creating adventure-based experiences. I thought that I had to take a certain path, but then kind of proving it to myself. Actually, I think even proven to my parents a little bit, because they were very practical, very rational. Like, hey, you got to do this, this, and that. I'm like, well, that doesn't feel 100% right, So I was like, kind of proving it to myself, proving to my parents. But then when I started to go down a path of like letting my dreams die a little bit because I thought I had to support the family, to wanting to prove to my kids that anything's possible. So like it becomes more about a bigger vision, which even when I'm feeling down, and I don't know if you feel the same way with your kids, is like leading by example, right, for your kids as well, and showing them what's possible, and then we're passing that down to generations. So I think that's super important in the path to pursuing our dreams for sure. And then
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, like, that's totally it. We all, or maybe not all of us, but I mean, I was definitely brought up to. I was told, "Oh, you can do whatever you want. Like, just commit to something, and you can do it." But saying that is one thing, but as a parent myself, like being an example of that, that's, I mean, that's how you pass on that belief. It's not just saying it, but doing it and showing them that anything's possible. And I've pivoted a few times, and I know my kids are watching, whether they look like it or not. They may be watching their phone at the same time, but they're watching. They see it, and that's just what drives me now is being a good example for my kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if you ever ask your kids like, "Hey, how am I showing up?" Like that's it takes a lot of courage as a parent to actually like go to your kids and get feedback from them and be like, "Hey, if you could rate like how I'm showing up as a parent, as a leader, as this," they'll give it to you straight, and
Yeah.
for sure. So, what do you think as your journey continues, or even thinking over the years? What were some of the biggest challenges that you overcame, and how did you work through them personally?
Yeah, I mean, the first challenge was going from 0 to 100 in snowboarding. I mean, I learned to snowboard in 1999, maybe the first time I got on a snowboard, and then by 2003, I was considered a professional snowboarder. I was getting paid to do that. Obviously, I didn't different times. Didn't cost as much to live the lifestyle I aspired to at that point in my life. But that was a challenge that I think I learned this from being a gymnast as a kid. You have to look ahead. Like you can't look down at each obstacle and each step of your routine or on the balance beam. You have to look ahead. You have to be thinking not just 3 steps ahead, but what is the finish line? And then from there you stretch the next finish line beyond that. And so, I mean, with any challenge, it's always been about focusing on where where I want to be when I get around that challenge or climb over it, and what, those challenges can be your biggest opportunities, because it's all how you frame it and how you look at those challenges, right? Because they can provide knowledge that without that knowledge, you wouldn't be able to get to the next level. And I mean, that's easier said than done, but that's what I try to keep inside of me, because, from turning professional in snowboarding to going to different venue. I mean, I did it all, different era of the sport, but from half pipe to slopestyle to big air, we all kind of did everything, because we wasn't so disciplined, and didn't require the focus level that it does now to be elite in those categories. But I was also doing extreme comps and go filming parts and trying my hand in Alaska lines and bigger mountain stuff. But again, I saw no reason why I couldn't do it all then, because I knew that that's that was what made me happy. I feel so lucky, because the timing was just really right in snowboarding, that I could do all of that and I could get the complete experience without being on a team, paying private coaches, and being really dedicated to a specific little part of snowboarding in order to be the best at it. We were still building up the sport and bringing it to the mainstream. And so as a result, I think all of us were able to jump in and do it all. There've certainly been challenges since then, because pivoting in careers and all of a sudden saying I'm going to be a business owner and run my own agency and build a team of people that can help those in their communities with financial services and strategies. That's a continued challenge, but as long as you're leading with heart and confident that you're doing the right things for people, it seems like an obvious next step for me, because the mentorship and wanting to surround myself with people that I could learn from constantly, and then surround myself with those that I could help and mentor and lift up to, be their best. That's very similar in sports as it is in finance.
Absolutely. There's two things that are coming up as you're talking through the thought process here. Is one is the things that we learned as a result. So for me, surfing, right, was big. I did snowboarding, and surfing were my two big things: snowboarding, surfing, and the mountain teaches us things like those activities. Like for surfing, it's like peace in the chaos, like being able to be under the water and not panic, and being completely in the moment, which has transitioned into my career in coaching and consulting, and also that transition conversation. So a lot of the work that I do through Zerkers is helping people transition, from one area. Maybe they're in a job and they want to start a business, or get into a new career, or maybe they're transitioning from the military, or maybe they're athletes transitioning into a new phase. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, what snowboarding in particular, the actual practical experiential things that it teaches the body that then translate into other parts of your life and career. And then the idea of what has supported you in that transition from a mindset standpoint, because there's all sorts of different things where you're stepping into a whole new world, and like your identity kind of gets blown up a little bit too as you're making that transition. So what's coming up for you for those two conversations?
Yeah, don't give me too many parts of a question, because I'll quickly go off track.
Yeah.
But I'd have to say surfing is one of those things that it still is a constant challenge for me, but I'm addicted to it. I love it. And but I'm constantly trying to get to where I feel competent, not and confident in any situation. But it's repetition. You need to do it more. And I mean, I think that comes up with snowboarding too. The things I've learned about overcoming challenges in snowboarding. So you already gave me too many parts of the question. um, confidence in your body for sure. I had to learn the hard way that preparation is important, that, not just doing physical therapy once you're hurt, but to do it in a, preventative way to stay strong. I grew up as an athlete, so I knew that I had that muscle memory, but the older you get, the more you have to really focus on keeping that constant. Because when you're confident in your body, then, I mean, there's definitely a connection between body and mind, and you can be physically strong, but not be able to push yourself technically on a snowboard if you don't have the confidence up here. And vice versa. I mean, I could watch snowboard videos all day long and think I have a trick figured out, but if I don't have the strength and flexibility to pull it off, it's never going to happen, or I'll get hurt. So I think that connection between body and mind has been something that, I mean, no matter what career you're in or what field, you have to have that. And we all know how we feel if we exercise, and it feeds our brain. Because I'm better in the morning. I'm glad we're doing this in the morning, because I went to the gym this morning and I feel like now my brain's firing and my body got a little bit of energy out of its system, and now I can sit in front of a computer. If I don't do that, then I feel like I'm dragging all day long, and that my brain isn't going to operate at its optimal state. But I think that there's just, regardless, like being an entrepreneur. As an athlete, I was an entrepreneur. I was in business for myself, and then I worked for companies as an employee. But coming back to being in business for myself, I'm definitely leaning on the skills and the mindset that I had as an athlete, because you have to be mentally competent, confident, and tough to, know that everything you're pouring into this, you're doing for, the right reasons, and you're not pouring yourself into, and all of your energy and all of your time away from the family in to build someone else's dreams. You're building your own. And I mean, that was snowboarding, and that is being in business now for myself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is, saying yes to yourself, and setting boundaries with yourself, and agreements like with family members. So when you have something that requires so much dedication, so much commitment, and so much focus, you see a lot of people kind of blowing up their relationships, or as a result of pursuing these passions. But when you can really balance, or integrate, create that integration between your professional and personal loves, and your family and your relationships, there's like this awesome, like symbiotic relationship that's creative instead of destructive. And I think that goes back to the idea of situational awareness, where, and I imagine too, that comes into play when you're going down the mountain, right? Or you're spinning around, or like upside down. It's like you got to know where you are in space, and that probably transitions into a personal life as well. Kind of knowing where you're at, where your goal is, like while life is spinning, right? Or like you're going 100 miles an hour, and you know there's something in the way, like there's something popped up in the way. So what do you do? Like you got to relax, don't panic, and like look at your different options. So I think that's what I love about sports, and especially extreme sports, is that they wire your brain to think differently. I think for most people. So I think that's why, um, personally myself, and I'm sure you kind of thrive in environments that do have a lot of different moving parts, and it's actually kind of exciting to like figure out solutions. And and even if we talk about the financial conversation, right? Like think about all the different moving parts of a person's finances, and you're basically looking at like, well, how do we move forward here in this person's life, or how do we create these goals, or get to the end goal, for people. So it's cool the way all these things kind of transition in our lives, moving forward. So
Yeah, it's clarity, right? Like the more you can give yourself clarity about around your goals, whether it's your financial goals or your physical goals, or visualizing of tricks or lines that you want to do on the mountain. It's the more clear you can be, and the more unobstructed that path can be, the easier it's going to be to get there. And that's what I like about your perspective on the financial side is it's I mean, and how my business works is it's giving people clarity. You can walk a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But if you can give them clarity about what they need to do to get to their goals, still up to the individual. But I like being the problem solver and identifying the gaps and giving clarity to somebody so they have that roadmap to get to their goals. And that's different for everybody. And honestly, it's like I got into this because I made mistakes and thought, there's a lot of things I wish I knew when I was younger, or even 5 years ago, that now that I'm learning, of course I want to share that with my clients and people in my community and family and network, because these are things that unless somebody shares knowledge with you, you may not know, or you may not have that clarity that you need. And yeah,
Yeah, and
I like that.
you shared something with too a few weeks ago, talking about your legacy, and what you're creating in the world from the standpoint of maybe the next, like, 5, 10, 20, 20, however many years you got left to be doing this work. Like, I'd love to hear, or I'm sure everybody would love to hear more about, like, if that, what's your focus, that focus that you have personally, and then into articulating that focus, that might get people thinking about how to focus on their legacy and what they're creating moving forward.
Yeah, I'm curious how I described my legacy a few weeks ago. 'Cause a lot happens in a few weeks, but
Mhm.
um, you know, I, I'd want to, both through my mistakes and through things my parents didn't know. They did their best, but there's a lot of things we can do differently to set ourselves up for the future. And I'm not saying I know everything, but I'm committed to surrounding myself with people that know more than me. So I know that there's always someone more knowledgeable that I can tap into. And it was the same with snowboarding. I always wanted to hang out with people that were better than me, because that's how you learn and get better. But I want to be in a position where I've built something that will provide for my family for the long run, and whether that's passive income or a business structure that continues to grow. And there's a lot of layers to that, but I'm driven by the desire to have more freedom of time. And I know that when you put in the hard work now, which I have been doing and on multiple levels with multiple businesses, but I'm driven because I'm looking at that end line. Like, I'm not the end, but I'm looking at the destination for now and where I want to be. And I know that the vision's going to get stretched beyond that, but all the while with that goal of creating more freedom of time to do more of the things I love, and not sacrifice it all in the meantime. But um, yeah, everybody's got different drivers. I want to be near warm water in in the sunshine more. And so, not that I want to go live in on a beach in Mexico, but I would like the freedom to go there when the surf's good, and I can escape my current environment. And yeah, just everybody wants that freedom, but there are a lot of layers that we get locked into, and a lot of boundaries that get set up, some under our control, some not. Just working a job is a boundary alone, but when you are in business for yourself and you have the opportunity to build something and structure it in a way that is going to be, self-sustaining, and you're buying more hours of the day by having more people working with you, um, that's I mean, it becomes very clear. This is what I have to do to get here. And then from there, I'm going to the next level.
Yeah, in that conversation, it's a lot about what happens is people create a bit of a gap. You know, like you set a big goal, and then all of a sudden you feel sometimes maybe you're not enough, right?
Overwhelmed.
And yeah,
Yeah.
you're feeling like, oh man, I'm not there. So therefore, you start beating yourself up, and you know, I think it's about setting those goals and being present to who you are being as you're moving towards those goals. So for me, it's I always wake up, you know, and ask myself, am I being a loving, compassionate, powerful leader? And regardless of where I'm at in the journey or what kind of circumstances come up, I know that I can show up in that way, and I have a choice to do that, and that I am enough in the moment, and that I have these big goals. But that doesn't mean that I'm not like not enough in that process of moving towards that. So many people are feeling like they'll be happy or be fulfilled or feel joy when this happens, right? When I'm here,
Yeah.
but you know, bringing that into the present, that's a lot of, you know, a lot about what conscious human performance is bringing people into the present moment and being aware of what is true and stepping into a way of being that serves us in that moment and the people around us, as opposed to having the other things happen like stress, anxiety, burnout, all that other fun stuff that comes up through the process. So I think that's, you know, where we kind of come together is this idea of being completely present, you know, heart centered, with this drive and passion to like create something amazing in the process and share life experiences so we can look back on our lives and be like, man, like, you know, I was there on top of that mountain, or, you know, I was dropping in on this huge wave in Costa Rica. Life experiences and connections, I think, are so amazing uh, as we move through this journey of life together.
Can I just say that I've been having that conversation a lot with my daughter. She's 16, and life can be really overwhelming as a 16-year-old, and even more so now with the world that we live in. but um but it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? If you look at the entire beast in front of you, you're going to get so overwhelmed, and it's so like unachievable, right? But one bite at a time, like one grade at a time, one class at a time, one task at a time. And and then that ultimate end becomes more clear. But I think it's so challenging for kids now that at that age and any age, when you think about, what do I want to be when I grow up, or what do I want to do next? What's my legacy in life? Like, when we were growing up, well, I'll speak for myself, but the environment was everything I had around. Like, all I could see was what I saw around me. It was my parents, the teachers, the community I lived in. Like, what were they doing? There was television, but so it all seemed more achievable. Like, okay, I could pick this path or this path. But now with phones and the entire world opened up to our kids, and they have a visual of all these different ways that people have succeeded or presented themselves, or content on their phones is really overwhelming. So and then that comparison that you're forced to make every time you look at your feed and you see somebody posting about their highlights, and like, that comparison can be so discouraging, because no matter what, you're only getting a tiny bite of what they're doing, a tiny taste of that success, and it makes you feel like you're less than because you're not there doing that. And then, 2 seconds later, you're looking at somebody else doing something else, and it just feels like there's so much opportunity for kids these days, because they can see so many different career paths and different passions that they could follow, but they don't have the tools to get there. They're just scrolling through, like, visualizing without taking action. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I do it too. But, at least I grew up with that foundation of, okay, you have to build this one bite at a time, one step at a time. And, your goals may change along the way. And especially as obstacles come along and you get around them, you may see a different path. But it is something I try to communicate with my kids about is like, man, you can do anything you want, but you don't get overwhelmed with the end being unachievable, or but with comparison of unrealistic presentations of people's reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Told you I would go off course, but that's what that, yeah.
no, I think that's right on course as far as the idea of, we're with social media, with all the media that's out there, we get to see the best of humanity, and
Mhm.
we see it at the peak though. We don't see like the 10, 20 years leading up to this thing that is happening for this person, so we're seeing these highlight reels and we're like, oh well, like this just happened, like it just happened right out of the blue. It didn't take 10, 20 years to do it. So then we're like, well, and then when it takes more than a year or two or three, like it's like to get to this spot, you could get frustrated and be like, I'm not like, this isn't working for me. But so I think, yeah, comparison, judgment comes up in the process. So we have all these different potentials and these like really pinnacle of like what society has accomplished. So there's this huge gap. So I think being going back to being present in the moment and then working towards, like you said, taking small bites and being grateful in those moments for the small bites. And I think for me, I've been somebody that has taken a bite of many, many different things, like so many different experiences. I've not ever had the pinnacle. I mean, pinnacle would be probably what I'm working towards is in the coaching and human performance area. Like that's the longest period of time, the past decade or more, probably 10, 15 years of that, where I'm getting very, very, very good at it. But also like I've snowboarded, I skydived, I mountain climbed, I've like done all these things that most people don't do. But I think back to focus, focusing on the thing, figuring out the thing that lights you up, and not getting discouraged with all the circumstances and things that come up to be able to take care of ourselves in the society, and then pursuing dreams and not giving up on your dreams is so important. And having a community of people, like I think coming together as well and grounding ourselves in live interactions and conversations and connections is super important as well, as we're stepping into this media where it's like we don't even know the difference like in reality sometimes of what we're seeing. So we're seeing this stuff, we're like, oh man, it's amazing, but actually that's like an AI, thing of not
Yeah, you
reality.
don't even know it's real anymore. Yeah.
So I think that that's going to continue to. So yeah, so I'm super passionate. I'm sure you're very passionate about supporting younger generations and pursuing their dreams and you know giving them the tool sets to do so, whether that's mentally, whether that's physically, whether that's financially, and creating those programs. So I'm excited for the future and everything that you're working on and where we can come together as well as we move down this path. So if you were to give like maybe one challenge or one thing that people can take away from today to apply to their life or their dreams that would make a big difference in their movement towards it, what would you say that thing would be?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I should have prepared for this one. um, well, and not that it's necessarily a challenge, but I mean, in working with younger athletes and working with entrepreneurs and business owners, it's, don't ever ignore anybody around you. Like you have to be you don't have to be an outgoing social person, but have meaningful conversations with the people around you, even the ones that you think are lower down on the totem pole, because those people could be the next CEO of a company you want to do business with. Like you never know. And so when I was mentoring athletes on a different path, I was encouraging them to know get to know all the team managers, get to know all the agents, insert yourself in these environments and talk to people. Just coming out of COVID and coming out of, our recent history, like I think that people have gotten really closed up, and even more so because of social media, because they can just present themselves outwardly through a reel or a clip on their phone, but like really have like be present, everything that you say, be present in conversations with the people around you, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for connections, because as long as you go into those conversations with the value add mindset and you are bringing value to them, you're not just asking something of them. And if you do have something to ask of them, come with something in return that you can offer, and approach all those conversations like that. I just think life is so fun as a giant networking, you know, pathway, because you never know. You and I got connected through mutual connections and groups of people that had a similar mindset and similar mission, and I just love that. But you never know where it can take you. So I would say just be open and approach each person and each conversation with something of value to bring to them, and but keep your goals clear. And there's no way you're not going to get over the obstacles if you stay focused on your goals and keep an open mind and an open heart.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the value system too, like when you can connect with people on a value base, like it's an equal playing field. So no matter where somebody's at or what they've accomplished, like if you share a common vision and a common value system, like it makes sense to come together. And speaking of connections, my mentor actually last week or the week before challenged me to get connected to Kelly Slater. So if there's anybody out there that's connected to Kelly Slater wants to connect me, that's my ask for a connection.
I guarantee you're only like 3 connections away from Kelly Slater. I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But always be ready for that, right? If you're gonna set that goal, be ready for what you're gonna do if you get to them. Like,
oh yeah,
how
absolutely.
would you maximize that moment? And then when you are ready, I bet you will connect with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I got mentored by Brad Gerlach, who I think is friends with him as well. So, um, yeah, I mean, thinking about transitions, like surfers making transitions, and he's making a huge transition into a new career path. But I think you set I've set the intention to meet people that are absolutely amazing and share experiences, find ways to support. And before, like years ago, I would have never thought that that was possible, you know? And it's just having an open heart, heart to serve, openness to possibility. And you never know, like, you never know what's going to happen. And I think that's the beauty of life is if you don't give it a shot, then you don't give it a shot. So,
Yeah, man. I mean, you can't deny that life is short, and also, the older you get, the more you realize how limited it actually is. I mean, anything could happen tomorrow, and what would you do today if you knew you only had 24 hours left or whatever? I know there's movies made about that, but
yeah.
you really, it takes some effort, but you have to dig in and not waste those moments and not waste the opportunity. And why not go talk to that person? Because just because you hold them in high regard doesn't mean that you're not going to bring something of value to them. And even if it is just praise and recognition, like, there's, yeah, life is short. Do what you can now to build that legacy and to protect yourself and protect your family, but then go full steam ahead, because you never know how much time you don't, the regrets are for a life not lived, not for how you lived your life.
Yeah, 100%. I often ask people, if you had 24 hours left to live and you can spend 33% of your time doing something for yourself, for me, it would definitely be surfing. 33% of your time with your family doing something, I'd be spending time, maybe having a breakfast and hanging out on the beach or doing some sort of adventure. And then 33% of your time doing some sort of career. or business, and that would be, some sort of outdoor adventure, transformational coaching experience for people. That would be a pretty amazing day. And I'm pretty close to those amazing days, whether it's coaching online, spending time with my family, having a phone call like and it takes commitment, So that's a great
Yeah.
question to have people consider.
Yeah. If you're spending the majority of your days and weeks building somebody else's dream in a job that is not rewarding, then you need to stretch your vision because it is, it's so easy to fall into that. And we need to work. We do need to do that. But even as you're working, like be building your own dreams on the side because you're going to put the energy and the heart into that. It's going to grow and provide for you in ways that your employer or your boss never will.
That's true. Yep. And everything will work out, even if you go through some challenging times.
Yeah, it always works out. It's how you view it though, right? It does. I mean, you can view challenges as opportunities and
Yeah,
in the right situation, they can become that.
absolutely. 100%. Well, it's been amazing spending time with you today. It's always awesome to explore, people's backgrounds and, hear the stories and the challenges, and it really creates that human experience and human connection, and you've accomplished some absolutely amazing things. And we're all human at the end of the day. We all have dreams, we have hopes, we have doubts, fears, all sorts of different things. So, Barrett, thank you so much for jumping on with me today, and I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation and seeing what 2026 holds for us.
I know, me too. I'm looking forward to experiencing some of your retreats, and I think there's a lot of synergy in what we're doing. So I'm grateful for the connection.
Absolutely. All right. Well,